Okay. And I'll also tell you that for some reason, my digital recorder is not uploading. And so when you go to, you can also go to my personal website, torahchai.net. Immediately after class, I post the Zoom link and it'll give you the complete recording of this entire class. And it looks like a very long, scary link because it does look like a long, scary link. But all you have to do is touch it and it'll start the recording for you. Okay. All right. So now we'll start with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Hello, everybody, and welcome. For those of you who saw my video for the Jewish experience, you know that I spoke about how the week kind of started with the horrific attack at the synagogue in Neve Yaakov. It was very obviously unnerving and scary and horrible. And we didn't find out about it until Shabbos day, and the rabbi announced. Now the synagogue has a lot of Anglo people, but all the announcements in the Devar Torah are in Hebrew. So I heard like pigua, which means terrorist attack, and then I heard neshek, which means gun, and then I'm like, what just happened? So what the rabbi was saying is there's been a terrorist attack. Anybody who is armed, please go to the go help secure the front of the building. And after service, we didn't end services. After services, don't congregate outside because there are hundreds of people who come to services on a Shabbos day. And just please disperse quickly and don't make a target out of ourselves. So that was what happened. And after Shabbos, we found out more what happened. So interestingly, in just how Israel goes from Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut, from Israel Remembrance Day to Israel Independence Day, like that. So there was a performance at the synagogue Saturday night that had been planned, songs like a musical thing. So the people are like, are we still having it? Like, are we having it? So it's like, yes, we are. So we started off with saying Tehillim, with saying Psalms in memory of the people who were killed and in a merit for refuah shlema for those who were injured. And then kind of took a deep breath and continued on with the evening. Says that the goal of a terrorist is to terrorize. And the only way we're not talking about any of the political things, I'm not talking about anything about that. Our personal approach, response is you carry on and don't be terrified. So the same thing happened with our trip. We were supposed to go on Sunday, but where we were supposed to go, we didn't have permission to go because of the security situation. So we got rerouted, but we had such a fabulous trip. And it ended up being dovetailing with this week's parsha, which was actually with the Haftorah. So if you saw my other posting on Facebook, it was a picture of Mount Tabor. Now, Mount Tabor looks like, if you can picture, if any of you have ever seen it, the Jezreel Valley. The Jezreel Valley is this lush, open, basically flat area. And then kind of in one area, there is this mountain called Mount Tabor, and it kind of rises out of nothing and is completely surrounded by flat area. So Mount Tabor is where Deborah, the judge and prophetess, led the Jewish people, and the general Barak, who was lacked emunah, lacked faith in God, and wouldn't go to battle without her. But Deborah was the one who planned the military strategy and said, you need to go to Mount Tabor. So who was the enemy? It was Sisera. So Sisera's army had a huge advantage, which was they had chariots, and the Jewish people had no chariots. So as our tour guide and teacher Todd was telling us, it's like, what's the advantage of somebody who has a chariot? So what's the chariot advantage? If anybody wants to unmute and say, what's the chariot advantage if you are in war?
They could run you over. They can get up close to you to shoot you with bow and arrow. They have a distinct advantage But we didn't have chariots when we left Egypt either.
Yes, but we weren't doing battle against the Egyptians, so that was very different.
Oh, but
So,
they came up, they were going to get us.
oh, yes, they
We
were.
had to defend ourselves.
Yes, but we did not defend ourselves. That was the whole point. So that was a different situation. So that's this week's
Okay.
parsha also. But this is this is Deborah. So this is
Okay.
much later in Jewish time. So
Yeah.
when we get to this part, and then we are in a little regular military battle. And so your opponents have chariots, and you have on foot. It's like, what is that? So what Deborah told the Jewish people to do is that they should all go to Mount Tabor. Like 10,000 should go up to Mount Tabor. Now, there you are, you little Jewish people up on Mount Tabor, and in the flat land around are all the chariots of the army. Now, this was considered a suicide mission. Like, think of Masada. What exactly is your plan here? You're going to go to Mount Tabor and the chariots are circling you. Even if they don't attack you, you have to come down sometime, and they could just wait you out. And if you do come down, you are dead. So it says what happened is that there was a miracle. And the miracle is that there was unseasonal rain. And the unseasonal rain flooded the Kishon River. The Kishon River, and it says, and it turned the entire flat area into mud. Now, mud and chariots don't go together. So when the mud gets with the chariots are literally mired in the mud. The horses are rearing up, they're stuck in the mud. And then you have an even playing field. And then the Jewish people come down from Mount Tabor and then basically succeed in wiping out the army. Sisera, who's the general, flees, because that's what all bullies do when they're really put to the test, is they're cowards. And he flees to someone who he thinks is his ally. And his ally is where we're going to come in with Yael. So she's the other heroine of the story. So if you have your Tanakh and want to turn to the Haftorah for this week, we're going to actually talk about the Haftorah before the Torah reading, because we want to talk about Yael. And that is going to be on, yes, Marcia.
Ellyn, I'm waiting for a repair person to come, so I'm going to probably have to get off early. I just want, since you mentioned the terrorist attacks.
Yes, we're not going to talk about that, actually. We're not going to talk about the terrorist attacks.
I just wanted to say that the Jewish Colorado had Itai Davinsky talk, I think it was Sunday night or Monday night. If anybody can get a hold of his recording of that, it was excellent in explaining a lot of things. That's all I want to say, because it isn't appropriate now. I know, but Jewish Colorado.
Why don't you go ahead, Marcia, and why don't you go ahead and put that in the chat, and then if somebody would like to follow up on that, they can do that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, the Haftorah for Bishalach is on page 1152, 1153. We're going to start on 1152. At the bottom of the page, verse 17, it says, Sisera fled on foot. Now, did you notice he fled on foot? What was he doing fleeing on foot? Because his chariot was stuck in the mud. Okay, so you take the big bully and take his chariot away from him, and now he's just running. So he fled on foot to the tent of Yael, the wife of Heber, the Kenite. So you want to say, who is that? Who is that person? Heber, the Kenite. It says the Kenite, says these were descendants of Yitro. Who's Yitro? Remember who Yitro is? Does anybody remember who Yitro is? Who's Yitro? You can unmute and say. Who's
Moses' father-in-law.
Exactly, Misty. Moshe's father-in-law, who is next week's Torah portion. Okay, Yitro comes to Moshe and the Jewish people following the splitting of the sea after the battle with the Amalekites, and Yitro comes, and we're going to find out what he said, because this is very important, because why does he go? Why does Sisera, our enemy, go to Yael, the wife of Heber the Kenite? This is because there was peace between Javan, the king of Hatzor, and the house of Heber the Kenite. Heber the Kenite was basically a traitor to the descendants of Yitro. The descendants of Yitro were friendly to the Jews. It was Moshe's family. It was his father-in-law. Moshe's father-in-law Yitro was loyal to the Jewish people, appreciated the Jewish people. The Jewish people had given them land in the land of Israel. After we came into the land, there was peace between the Jewish people and Yitro's descendants. However, this one person decided he was more of like putting his faith on whoever was the stronger, and he decides to align with the king of Hatzor. The king of Hatzor was in charge of who was going against the Jewish people. So Sisera figures he's going to a friend. However, Yael was somebody different. As we have seen with our matriarchs, sometimes people, the women who are in families where the husbands or the brothers or the whoever are bad news, somehow the woman manages to have a position that's in the right place. So he goes, when Sisera goes to this place, thinking he's going to a place of an ally, Yael is the person, she goes out, verse 18, Yael went out towards Sisera and said to him, "Turn, my lord, turn to me, do not fear." He turned off to her to the tent and she covered him with the cloak. And he's relaxing and having a good time. And it says, he said to her, page 1153, hold on, let's see, I just need to admit somebody. 11, and he says to her, "Give me a bit of water to drink because I'm thirsty." And she opened the container of milk and gave him to drink and covered him. He told her to stand at the entrance of the tent, and it shall be that if any man will come and ask you, saying, "Is there a man here?" you are to say no. Yael, Heber's wife. Now think about what this took. She's taking a man into her tent. She's married to Heber, who is a friend of Sisera. But she, Yael, is going to do something that certainly isn't going to help her marriage. Let's put it that way. She is going to kind of seduce Sisera and get him nice and relaxed. And then she's not only is going to turn on him, she's going to kill him. So let's see what happens here. And
Excuse me,
Yael,
Ellen?
yes.
I'm sorry, because is this where the Song of Deborah is? What part of the Tanakh? Because I'm on 1152 and I don't see it. 1153.
So it's not in the Tanakh, Dorothy, it's in the Chumash. So this is.
Well, I don't have one of those.
Okay,
So I have.
okay. So then you
Is it
want
in
to.
Judges?
It is in Judges. It's chapter 4,
Okay.
verse, and now we're going to say verse 21. Chapter 4, verse 21.
Okay.
If somebody else has a Tanakh and wants to.
Oh,
Dorothy
I see
to-
it now. Thank you. I was on the
Found
web
it?
page.
Okay, that's
Thank
okay. I'm sorry, I don't have a Tanakh with me, which is super embarrassing in this land. On the tour, they go, "Please bring your Tanakh." I'm like, mine's on my lift. I don't have one with me. So embarrassing. Anyway, it's like saying, "Oh, I didn't bring pen and paper to class." Like, I don't have my Tanakh. So Yael, Heber's wife, takes the tent peg and placed the hammer in her hand. She came to him stealthily and drove the peg into his temple and pierced the ground, for he was asleep and exhausted, and he died. Then she says, then Barak comes in, pursuing Sisera, and Yael went out toward him and told him, "Go, and I will show you the man whom you seek." He came to her, and behold, Sisera was fallen dead with the peg in his temple. Now, consider this scenario here. So first of all, we have to ask the question, why did she do that? Why did she do that? Her family was a friend of Sisera. Where is Yael coming from? It says, Yael is true to her family's roots of Yitro. Yael is the one who Yitro, when in next week's parsha, if you go back to the Chumash and you go to Yitro, that would be in, for those in the Tanakh, that's Exodus chapter 18, verse 1. Or for those of you who have a Chumash, on page 395, it says, Yitro, the minister of Midian, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard everything that God did to Moshe and to Israel, his people, that Hashem had taken Israel out of Egypt. Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe, took Zipporah, the wife of Moshe, et cetera, and Yitro, it goes on and talks about that Yitro came because he heard about all the wonders that God had done for the Jewish people. Yael, hearing what had happened with the Kishon River overflowing and the chariots getting stuck in the mud and basically either killing the riders directly or the Jewish people being able to be victorious, she sees this as like, oh, I know this scenario. This is just like what happened when the Jewish people left Egypt. So she is a person who then identifies with God and with the Jewish people, and she goes against her own best interest. Somebody asked the question, and our teacher didn't have the answers. What happened to Yael afterwards? It says, was she killed by her husband? I mean, you don't do that to your husband's friend and then maybe walk away from that. So we actually don't know what happened to Yael afterwards. She does something that is certainly, as I said, is not going to help her marriage. And not only that, but she is, whatever degree of intimacy that they had, that she exposes herself to. And then driving a tent pin into somebody's head, you have to be pretty up close and personal. And you can't just say, stay still, I'm going to drive a tent pin into your head. We're like, how do you do that? And if somebody's just as kind of like, you know, has passed out and you don't know when they're coming to again, and then you're going to do that. It was a very, very risky move on her part. And yet she is the one that then goes down in history along with Devorah as the heroines of this battle. That was the women who had the emunah, the faith in God and the faith in God's promise that they would be victorious and that the mission would be successful. Barak at the beginning says to Devorah, if you don't go with me, I'm not going because this plan sounds like a terrible plan to me. And she says, I'm so confident I'm going with you. I'm going with you. And so she accompanies him, and that's what makes the battle is successful. And after that, it says the Jewish people had peace for 40 years. I think we'd all take 40 years of peace. 40 years of quiet in the land. This wasn't just a skirmish. This was a decisive battle and a decisive victory that was brought down and specifically connected by our sages as well to this week's parsha, as significant as this week's parsha, the Torah reading of the splitting of the sea and the wiping out of the Egyptian army and the Egyptian chariots. These two things are parallel. Being able to be at Mount Tabor and seeing the geography, I have to say, I think I would have been like Barak, like, you've got to be kidding. We should go up on that mountain and be sitting ducks waiting for Sisera's army. That makes no sense. But then it's an equally miraculous that the Kishon River, which is still there to this day. So everything that we're reading, you just see right in front of your face. And that's a really good way to learn. So I hope that on our next women's trip, that maybe what we'll do is to be able to go to the place. First of all, it is absolutely gorgeous scenery, but to be able to go there and to hear the story and to see it in front of your face, it's like a movie. You can almost picture it. In fact, that would be a really great industry, is reenacting. I don't know who you get to play the parts, but reenacting kind of something they could do with holograms or something where they could project it onto the field. I did not take pictures because I was trying to keep my balance, but I do have some pictures that some other people took, but I look really stupid in most of them because when I'm thinking, I go like that. So that's what I look like in those pictures. So you won't be seeing those. Anyway, the scenery is beautiful, but I look really weird. So yeah, anyway, it was a great trip, and we saw other places as well, but it was completely unplanned that we were going to be at Mount Tabor because there was a completely different itinerary that was plan A. So not that I was happy for the reason, but plan B ended up being very exciting to be able to see. So I wanted to share that with you. The women, again, are the ones who have just throughout history had the emunah and had the faith and trust in God and believed in the prophecies, and not just like, oh, I believe, but I believe it and I'm willing to really do something that takes chutzpah, gumption, courage to be able to make something happen. Going to that in the context of the attack that had happened the day before, 2 days before, as I said in my little video, was very comforting. You know, when you go to a Shiva house, what you say to someone is, Hamakom yinachem etchem tel shavei Mi-Tzion Yerushalyim. Usually everyone's stumbling all over that, and you shouldn't have to memorize that. But basically it says, Hashem should comfort you amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. It's like, what does that mean? Like, how does that help me that there are other mourners of Zion and Jerusalem? And like, what is that? What is that message? So that the message has to do with understanding that our individual story, our individual loss fits into a bigger context. And when we understand that, we're not saying, oh, that their death meant something. We're just saying that there is a bigger story that is holding all of the Jewish people's history together. That because what does mourning for Zion and Jerusalem have to do with the loss of my mother? Like, what is that connection? It's like, it's all part of the same thing. It's all one big story, and each of us has a piece in it, and our own individual stories are part of that. And there's nothing that stands alone by itself. And so it becomes woven into a tapestry of experiences. So here we have the attack, a vicious attack against the Jewish people. And then the next day we're standing in a place where we had an amazing victory in battle. So it's like, so which is it? It's like, it's both. It says, and that results in song. So it's also interesting that this whole thing was on like the cusp of leaving Egypt and Shabbat Shirah. So this Shabbos is called the Shabbos of song. So it's like, what's the song about? So this comes from Rabbi Moshe Wolfson. If you have a Chumash or a Tanakh, I think it's written in both ways, but if you go back to the Song of the Sea, which is how we get part of the names of this, you'll notice that the way the Song of the Sea is written, and I'm just going to turn to page 379, doesn't really make a difference wherever you are, and the Song of the Sea starts in chapter 15, verse 1. But if you can see it, and I assume that in the Tanakh it's also written like this, but it's written like this. Okay, so you see the structure of that writing. Yes, thank you, Carol. The structure of that writing, it's called brickwork. Okay, it's written like brickwork. And you notice some distinctive things about it, which is that there's a lot of white space, right? It's like, it's not a very efficient use of the column inches. It's very pretty, but it's not efficient because you could fill in so many more spaces there. It's actually pretty hard to write that way also, to keep it all lined up. So what is a song? It says, the song is made up of both the notes, which are the letters that are there, and the silences, the white spaces. It says, and what are the white spaces? The white spaces are all the places where we don't know. Like, what can I say? What can I say about my own situation? I don't have any answers. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why I'm going through this. I don't know why this happened to this other person. I don't know why this happened to me. This is a depressing time. This is a non-productive time. This is a winter time. There's nothing happening time. I can't understand it. I can't see it. I don't get it. It says, it is the time of the silences. It says, good music. So I know Gabi, of course, is a musician here, and I don't know who else all is a musician here, but music is not made up just of notes. That would be you can't even listen to that. The music is made up of the notes and the silences, and there is a rhythm. There is a rhythm to it as well. So it's not random, because that we can't even listen to. There are notes, there is spaces and silence, and there is a rhythm. And when we can have a glimpse that this is all one story, and that we may be on the note, we may be in the white space, we may be in different places in the song, but I know it's a song. I know it's a song. And it's the song of my life, the song of the children. Exactly. Silences are most important in the music. In fact, yes. And holding a note. Some notes last a long time. Some notes are quick. And that's like the things in our life as well. Some experiences are brief experiences. Some experiences are long experiences. And then there are the experiences like where we have nothing to say because we don't even know what it is. When we have clarity, we can put this all together, and that's called rising to a level of song. When the Jewish people, once they crossed, if you notice, they did not sing when they left Egypt. They weren't ready to sing yet. It's like, okay, they had the 10 plagues, okay, and they had that Seder that they had in Egypt, and they left, and there's all this stuff going on. And sometimes when you're in it, you don't know what to make of it. But once then there is the place where there can be some perspective. It says song takes perspective. It's often after the fact, but a person can get to a place where they can recognize that they're in the song, even if they don't have total understanding yet. So when we say Shir Hamalot, when we say on Shabbat or the holidays, and we talk about the Jewish people returning to the land of Israel, it says our mouths will be, that there will be song, we will be filled with song. It says, what's the song? The song will be like, I get it, I get it. So as Beth Ann had responded into my Facebook post, in the future, there won't be any questions. Okay, we won't have any questions in Olam Haba. There aren't any questions because we'll see it all fitting together. We do not have the luxury of that at this point, other than to know that there is a song and that we are participating in it. Yes, Beth Ann. If you want to just unmute.
Am I unmuted? Okay.
Yes.
I was going to say, but when you're at a Shiva home, especially if somebody's lost a child, just hold them in silence. I mean, you can't give people perspective. It just takes time.
Oh, for
and
sure. It's not even just a child. It's not
anyone. Right.
We are not supposed to give anybody
pediatrics. So.
Yes, you're in pediatrics, so for sure,
Yeah.
for children. Yeah. We're not supposed to give anybody a lecture on theology at a Shiva house at any age, at any stage. I have a friend of ours just lost her mother. She was 98. She had a heart attack, and they got back to the States to see her before she passed away, and they're devastated. They're already planning her 100th birthday party, and she's sitting there. People think like, well, you had her for 98 years. It's not like she died young. It's like, she was my mother. She was vibrant, dynamic, amazing. So there is no time, but our wish, regardless of circumstances, is always Hamakom Yenachem Etchem. And Hamakom is God's name. It's not, I am going to give you a different perspective. It's God in the dimension of Makom. Makom means place. Okay, it's an unusual name for God that we don't use very often. It says God will give you this Makom concept. It says, and this is something that somebody shared with me. And since I wasn't planning to say it, I don't have the numbers at the top of my head here. But Makom, the gematria of Makom, whatever that is, whoever wants to figure that out quickly, of Makom, is the sum of taking. It says, okay, let's go back. If you want to measure area, you say length times width. Length times width. Okay, length times width. That describes place or space. If you take Hashem's name, Yud, Hey, Vav, and Hey, and you take those numbers and you turn them into space dimensions. So if you take a Yud, which equals 10, and say 10 times 10, plus Hey times Hey, which is 5 times 5, plus Vav, 6 times 6, plus Hey, 5 times 5. You add that all together, that equation equals Makom. It says Hashem is the ultimate place. It says, what does this mean? It says one of our I won't say dilemmas. One of the things we cannot grasp is that when somebody is no longer in this physical world, where are they? Are they in oblivion? Are they like lost in space? Where are they? And in this way, we're all like children who, when their mommy goes outside and closes the door, is like, mommy disappeared. Where are they? When we say hamakom, it says, what's the comfort? The comfort is to know that there is no place that is outside the place of God's existence. There is no place outside of God's existence because God is existence. We exist in God. So you can be in a different part of it. So you are like in a different room, but you can't be outside of God's place. And that's the part of the comfort. It's not like it's for the best. This is like your ultimate, like one of the ultimate things is that the person is still with you. They are in a different room, but they are in the ultimate space of God. That's why that name of God is used as the source of comfort. Hamakom yinachem etchem. Hashem as the ultimate space, that is what will comfort you amongst all the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem, because there is no other space. It is all one big story, and all of us have a piece in it. Whether our life is a 2-minute life or 120 years life, there is no such thing, just like in a symphony. You know, I always wondered, who wants to be the person that rings the little triangle? Like, you know, you go to all the rehearsals and the practices, and then you come in, ding, like, and like, what's that? It's like, it's part of the symphony. Or you're the first violinist, or you're the horn, or you're the whatever, or you're the bump, bump, bump at the end. I don't know. But it's like when we see that it is all one thing. We also refer to Hashem as the conductor. Hashem is conducting, like, don't worry, the orchestra is being conducted. Be like, well, that note didn't sound good to me. It's like, well, you don't know what the score is. We don't know what it is. But when we say to the conductor, we say there is a conductor, there is a space, there is a story, there is a song, and I'm part of it, even if I don't yet understand it. It says that this is Shabbat Shira. Interestingly, it always coincides with either right on or the right preceding Tu B'Shvat. So we know that the Torah readings, which I find fascinating, because the Torah readings don't go according to like Pesach. So for example, I didn't burn my chametz yet, even though we've been reading about Pesach. Okay, so the Torah reading cycle does not coincide with the other holidays. We don't read about Yom Kippur at Yom Kippur time. We don't read about anything at any of the other times that you would think it would coincide. But Tu B'Shvat we do. So this Shabbos of Shabbat Shira always coincides, either it falls out directly on Tu B'Shvat or right the week of. So Tu B'Shvat starts Sunday night and Sunday night, Monday. So what's the connection? Let's see. Hamakom. So the question, does Hamakom mean Hashem as the source from which everything emanates? It's more than that. It's not the source. It means that it is the place. It is the place that contains everything that exists. It is the ultimate place of existence. If you have God as a source from which everything is created, there's still a distance, because I can be the source of something that exists and then launch it out someplace else. I don't necessarily contain it. I don't know how, it's the space. Hashem is the ultimate place. You know, they talk about people, just as an aside for that, drawing a picture. Like you take a piece of paper and somebody will say, okay, draw a picture of like you, and then draw a picture of where God is. So sometimes people say, like, you draw a little piece, here's a little me, I'm like drawing myself a little stick person right here. And then depending on how much I believe in God, maybe I make God like a big, cloud in the sky or whatever. It says, that's the mistake. It says, God is the piece of paper on which you are written. It's like you exist in God. It's not that there is any separation whatsoever. So whether I am alive or not in this physical world, I am never outside of God's reality. That's the ultimate hamakom. Okay, Tu B'Shvat. Says, what's the connection? Tu B'Shvat is really a fascinating holiday. First of all, to celebrate it here, for those who are here in Israel, you go to, and I'm going to try and do my next video from there. You go to the stores and they are overflowing with dried fruits and nuts and everything for everybody's Tu B'Shvat Seders. So you walk in. So imagine walking into Whole Foods or King Soopers or wherever you like to shop. And as you walk in, that's like the main display, as if there's nothing else going on in the world. And there's all these fruits and nuts and your holiday and wine and doing all this stuff. So it is totally enveloping. So here's what's really kind of crazy. Tu B'Shvat celebrates the new year of the trees, but all those fruits we're eating, there aren't any fruits now. There's no fruits now. We're celebrating that the sap is just starting to come out, up and out, or whatever the actual tree definition is. And the things, the almond blossoms are just starting to blossom. In fact, I asked my daughter-in-law, have the almond tree started to blossom yet? She's like, not quite. They're just like little buds. So I'll do pictures when they're like beautiful pink flowers and everything else, and they're really gorgeous. But it's not yet. It's the very beginning of everything. So
in the Judean hills, they're blooming.
Are they in the Judean hills? Oh, okay,
Yes.
great. I'll have to come up. Okay. Because we were looking for them on our trip and we didn't see any. So, okay, so they're just, but they're just starting. So Tu B'Shvat is, so that's the song. Hashkedia porachat, okay? The almond trees are blossoming and they're the first ones. So it's kind of ironic that we celebrate something that has barely gotten started by eating the fruit that was really from last year's crop, right? It's like, what am I saying with that? It's an expression of trust. It's like, I'm eating the fruit now that I trust is getting started, that has not come to, literally what we say, has not come to fruition. It has not come to fruition. I'm celebrating the very beginning of the fruit process, namely the blossoms. We should be celebrating with flowers, but we don't celebrate with flowers, we celebrate with fruit. Like, that's amazing. I'm celebrating the end of the process at the very beginning of the process. Now, some things we don't do this, like, for example, now whether you did this or not, I'm not here to judge any of those things. It's like, it's not really a Jewish thing to have a baby shower before a baby is born. It's considered, let's just wait till the baby is born until you have like everything, you know, like what's happening. But it is a Tu B'Shvat thing to say, you haven't seen any fruit from these trees yet, but let's eat the fruit now. So we eat the fruit now as an expression of emunah, of faith and trust that it is going to come. And that is the belief in a miracle where we have hardly seen any sign of it. So starting with Tu B'Shvat, we are now considered entering the season of miracles, 3 months of miracles, and they're all 4 weeks apart. So we'll start with Tu B'Shvat, which is the 15th of Shvat. We'll move 4 weeks later, amazingly, and 4 weeks from Tu B'Shvat will be Purim, and then 4 weeks from Purim will be Pesach. So we go in increasing order of revelation of God's hand. We go from Tu B'Shvat, where there's really not so much evidence to begin with, and yet we celebrate full force. We go to Purim, where God's hand is hidden and God's name doesn't appear in the Megillah, and we celebrate and give all the credit to God that it was all God's work. And then until we come to Pesach, where that's so clear and obvious and everybody knows that it was God's hand. It says, but these 3 holidays are called the 3 seasons of the 1 season, the 3 months of miracle. And it starts with knowing, having in mind that the end is known in the beginning. This is because blossoms lead to fruit, which leads to the end. In the end, the fruit will be successful. So we eat it as an act of faith and trust, which is why that people have a Tu B'Shvat Seder. And they go through it, and the Kabbalists created that's modeled after the Passover Seder, with 4 cups of wine, the different kinds of fruit, and there's all sorts of mystical meanings for that, for everything. But it's being able to see that it's all one story. in the blessings that we're told, the Jewish people, it says that when Mashiach comes, it says, all pregnancies will result in live births, all plantings will yield fruit, everything will reach its end, its appropriate end. And that's how we'll know that we've gotten to that stage. When we think about Shabbat Shirah and the song, it says, again, the women, because what do we know that Miriam did? So the women who came on my most recent trip to Israel, we made Miriam's tambourines. Okay, we had a Miriam's tambourine workshop. It says Miriam and the women made tambourines. That was equivalent to we're eating the fruit because we know that it's going to end well. They made the tambourines to celebrate before they even left Egypt. Now, I'm not sure when they, sent out the WhatsApp message saying, ladies, let's gather and make our tambourines because redemption's happening any moment. Doesn't ever say when they made them. For all we know, Miriam made it 80 years before, or when she, as a child, told her father, you're worse than Pharaoh, God's going to redeem us. She had that in her mind when she was 8 years old. So Moshe was 80 when he leads the Jewish people out of Egypt. So Miriam was like 88. So she waited a long time for this to happen. So when did she make her tambourine? I don't know. Etta.
I thought she brought them with her from Egypt, already made.
She did, but all the women had them. She didn't
Yes.
pass them out.
She had
All
other
the women-
instruments as well, I think.
All the women, whatever it was, the women had them and made them, and they were prepared. That wasn't something, slaves don't walk around with tambourines. That is not on the list of authorized equipment. It was that they had them and they were ready to play them. And it wasn't just Miriam, it was all of the women. It says all of the women followed after her. So when do you make your tambourine? So you could say she had it ready for 80 years. So when is the redemption really happening? The truth is, it happens really as soon as you eat the fruit. When you decide this redemption is already underway. It's already underway. I'm going to eat the fruit of it now. I'm making my tambourine now. I'm eating my fruit when the blossoms are just starting. I don't need to wait until I see it because I know it's going to happen. Dorothy, if you want to unmute.
I just thought of a detail though. Last year was a Shemitah year. So what
Yes.
about the fruit? Is that from the year before, or did they actually, is there dried fruit from last year, that's now dry?
Yes, there is dried fruit from last year, and that's a whole complicated kashrut issue about.
Right. Can you eat it?
Yes, you can. You have to just treat it very carefully. So, for example, this isn't dried fruit, this is regular fruit. The citrus fruits that are on the tree grew during Shemitah. So even though the Shemitah year is now over, because it was over at Rosh Hashanah,
Right.
it's now over, but so they have oranges and lemons on their trees. So that's called, they have Kedushat Shvi'it. They have the sanctity of Shemitah, which means that when we use them, so I have it here. So I use the lemon, but you can't just throw it. I can't just throw away the lemon after I squeeze out the juice. So the seeds and the skin have to be kept until it deteriorates, and then it has to be thrown away respectfully. So it's kind of like semi-composting it, but you don't put it in a compost pit. You put it, people have like a special, I don't, because we're just renting here. So I have a little plastic container, but I have the lemon from that I've been using. And then after it decomposes, then I throw it away. So yes, you can eat it. I am so not an expert on the Shemitah. It is very challenging to understand, but yes, you can eat it. And yes, there is dried fruit. And yes, you have to be very careful of the hechshers that are on them, of how they were handled, how they were grown, and who is in charge of them. So that's the short
So it's
answer.
like the fruit from the Shemitah year is holier than the, like another year.
Absolutely.
I didn't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. It has Kedushat Shvi'it, it has to be handled very, very carefully.
Oh, okay.
So,
That's interesting. Thank you.
yeah, very carefully. Sure. So yes, Gabi.
I didn't understand the 5 times 5, the makom. I just did 40 plus 100 plus 6 for 40, but you were saying width multiplying by length. I didn't understand how you did the gematria. 5.
The gematria is Yud times Yud, which is 10 times 10.
What, for which, for Makom? Oh, you're
No,
thinking.
this is the name of Hashem. Hashem's name
that
is the
you
Yud
cannot
Hey
say,
Vav
okay,
Hey
please.
name. So
Why
it's
10?
Yud times Yud.
Yeah, because it's twice.
So it's as if it was length times width. We're pretending Yud is a length and Yud is a width. So we're taking 10 times 10. It's just a way of looking at the at Hashem's name. We're turning it into as if it was space.
So Yud is a length, you said?
Yeah, you know what? Let me explain it to you afterwards, Gabi,
Okay.
if that's okay. I'll be happy to draw it out for you so you can see.
Thank you. Yeah, I need to see.
Sure.
for that.
Okay. So then going back to the Tu B'Shvat, is Tu B'Shvat and eating the fruit and Miriam's tambourines, all of that is the same. And so that's actually a decision to be made. It's like, when is the redemption happening? It's like, it's actually unfolding right now. So this actually came up, it was kind of funny. There was as I said, the synagogue that we're going to, the Devar Torah is in Hebrew. And then the rabbi gives it over afterwards in English. But I came in, he was talking about, when do you recite Shehechianu? Because he was talking about when things are new from last week's parsha. So it says, one of the times you recite Shehechianu is when you buy a house. So when you buy a house, you say Shehechianu. So now I didn't hear the punchline because I didn't understand. But the questions he asked are, do you say Shehechianu when you make your first payment, when you take out the mortgage? Do you say Shehechianu after it passes inspection and you have the certificate of occupancy? Do you say Shehechianu after they come back and fix all the problems you identified in your final inspection? Do you say it after you do remodeling, after they, you decide you want something else? Do you say it after, it's paid off? What is it considered that you have bought it? And part of it is a subjective, it's like, when do you feel that you bought it? It's like, well, I felt like I bought it when we bought it on paper. I almost felt like we bought it when we just saw it. It's like, what is it to you? So part of the Shehechianu is, what is it to you? And part of it of the redemption is, what is it to you? If someone says like, I'll believe it when I see it. The other is, I'll see it when I believe it. And when I believe it, I will see it. And I'll see the steps unfolding. Miriam was able to see the steps unfolding. Like a trip, when a kid asks, as soon as you pull out of the driveway, are we there yet? When does the vacation start? Does it start when you get there? Does it start the night before when you're packing? Does it start when you're planning the trip and make reservations at the hotel and the airfare? Does it start when you first decide that you're going to go on vacation? It starts when you decide it has started. Now, when our kids used to come to Denver, which we're going to miss that, but it started for us when the packages from Amazon and Children's Place and a Target all started arriving at our house that our kids were ordering to take back with them to Israel. It's like, okay, their trip has started. Like, their things that they're ordering have already started arriving at our house. The trip is already there. It's like they're already here. Okay. Very good question from Selena. The second son, what is it to you? That's true. That was an admonition to him of what is it to you that the son was asking. This is in the positive of what is it to you? The redemption will be when you see it, when you believe it, you will see it unfolding. The word for the almonds, which is the first fruits the first thing to develop, the first things to blossom, they're called shkedim. And the root shin kuf dalid means to act with alacrity. It means to be like first, to be the first one and to be diligent. The name of the plant itself is that quality. It's like, I'm going on the scene. So it's like, why does the almond blossom, why does it blossom so early? Kind of a little bit too early. It's like, because it's already like, it's spring. It's time. It's like in Denver, like when the crocus or the tulips things start coming up while you still have snow on the ground. It's like, you're a little early. But isn't it so heartening when you see them? It's like, okay, if they're coming up, then it must be spring. I didn't think they would actually really happen this year. It seemed like it was completely gone. So when we see the sign of it, it's like, it's the sign. And when we're willing and able to see the sign, then we are already there. So whether it's I'm already eating the nuts and the fruit, has nothing to do with this year, really. It's just like, I know this is coming. When I can celebrate that, when I can have packed my tambourine, when I can see the song, when I can sing the song, it's all the same story. So first we have it in the form of song, we have it in the form of tambourines, we have it in the form of fruit. And it's like, we have it in the form of Miriam, we have it in the form of the Jewish people, we have it in the form of Deborah, we have it in the form of Yael. It's like, it's a great multimedia extravaganza. And it says this Shabbos is given that special name of it is a song. We may not be able to identify, am I in one of the quiet places? Am I in the place where it is something exciting is happening, when something negative is happening? It doesn't really matter. It's all part of the same song. So that when we realize that, then we have like hints of Kohelet, where it says, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. And it goes back and forth in a very balanced way. But if you look at each of the columns, it's not like the good column and the bad column. It's like a time of death, a time of life, a time to kill, a time to this heal. They are mixed up because we don't know what the things are. What's the good column? I don't know. I have no idea. I know what it feels like, but I don't know what it is. All I can say is it's part of a song. And that too is written like a song. They kind of teeter-totters back and forth, because that's what it is. So the very famous saying, Gam ze ya'avor, this shall also pass. Some people say when something is going very well and it's not to depress us, well, don't get too excited, this will also pass. And something sad, well, don't be so upset, it's also going to pass. It's not meant to say that. It's just meant life is kind of goes like this. And when we know that, then we can enter into the experience with more patience, with more confidence, with more equanimity, with more joy, with more sorrow. We won't be scared of either one. I can say, okay, this is a happy time. This is a challenging time. This is a painful time. This is a thrilling time. It's all of it together. And yet it says that Hashem created time so that everything doesn't happen at once. In Hashem's world, there is no time. It's all exists simultaneously. We live in the world of time, and so we experience things spread out over time because we would be overwhelmed, we couldn't take it in. So our time fluctuates, but when we see that it's all part of a song, we'll be able to appreciate it and we'll be able to sing that song. It's fortunate for us that the Song of the Sea is part of our morning davening every single day. So a person doesn't need to wait until Shabbat Shirah, doesn't need to wait till just this week's Torah portion, or for the seventh day of Pesach, when we will sing this song again, because that's when it happened, was the seventh day of Passover. We don't need to wait. We can really sing it every single day. And I think it's helpful that it starts in the morning. So along with your cup of coffee is like, Song of the Sea. I'm not sure where I am in the song. I'm not sure what verse I'm on. Don't know, but I know I'm in the song. And that in and of itself is a great way to start the day, to launch, and to be prepared for the challenges, the opportunities that come our way. Beth Ann. So you just need to unmute.
I'll get it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I am so bad. Okay. How do you know when you're redeemed?
How do you know what was that?
How do you know when you're redeemed? How do you know when redemption? Do you mean the big redemption, or how will we know? How will we know?
How will we know? So we're in process. So you are in process. It's
Okay.
the ultimate redemption. You'll know that, and we'll know that, God willing, that Mashiach comes. That's the ultimate redemption. It's the ability to be in the process and know that it's happening. Again, going back, I know it's like it's an inadequate comparison, but again, about the vacation. When does your vacation really begin? Is it when you get there? Or is it when you decide, I want to go on vacation and I'm planning it? When the process itself, we can recognize that in itself, that is redemption. So there was a great book I had, it was called Redemption Unfolding, that even God in earlier parsha, when God tells the Jewish people, or tells Moshe, I will redeem you, I will save you, I will this, I will that. There's like there's called 4 expressions. This was in our book of Living in the Present Moment, that God himself describes redemption, not as like, I'll redeem you. It's a process. And the opportunity and the goal is to recognize that it's a process and be able to enjoy it, to stick with it as it's happening. And the Jewish women have always been able to do that. Going back to having the babies in Egypt, Miriam and her mother Yocheved were able to tune into the women and say, every child that is born is part of the redemption. Because if there aren't any people, there won't be any people to be redeemed. That was her objection to her father Amram wanting to separate from his wife and not bring any children to the world because there was a death decree. And her challenge to him is, why are you on Pharaoh's wavelength? Why are you dialing into that frequency rather than Hashem's frequency of redemption? We're building redemption. Redemption is one person at a time, one event at a time, and it all contributes. So even when Miriam gives, tells Pharaoh's daughter, can I get a wet nurse for you, for Moshe, for this baby? That was a step, that was a redemptive step, because that was the next thing that needed to happen. So Miriam would say, well, how do I know when redemption is happening? It was happening, and she was able to see it. And that's where we're trying to get to. And we have a legacy. We have the legacy of Jewish women going back all the way to the beginning and all the way through Devorah and Yael and Miriam and Yocheved and all the women. We have a legacy of being able to do this. So if you're feeling like, uh-oh, I must not be part of the legacy because I'm not really, yes, thank you. If you're feeling like I must be like a flop as a Jewish woman here because I'm not really feeling it, go to Shul this week. This is the time to really connect to that and to work on cultivating that, because it's not easy. I'm not saying that the Jewish women had it like, oh, no problem. This is considered the avoda. This is the spiritual work of the Jewish women, because the Jewish women are the ones holding down the fort in this realm.
Have you heard the song? You know the kids' song. The kids come home singing it from school.
Oh, sounds good. So those are the ways that we have to understand. It's a process. We're in the process. The process has been unfolding for a long time. It's not a short story. It's a long story. We are in the age where we want instant results, and that makes it a little bit harder. And just think, our ancestors were waiting. We're certainly seeing, and I have to say,
Yes, we are.
the fact that as I said last week, the fact that I can stand in my kitchen here next to my washer and dryer and look at the walls of the old city and daven mincha is like, okay, I'd say we're in process here. So I don't know where, but we're definitely in the process, and we're, the game is on, and we're in it. So all I can wish for us is you should eat your fruits now. Like they say, life is short, eat dessert first. Redemption is coming, eat the fruits of your labor now. We don't have to wait. The fruits of our labor, eat now. And that is inspiring us to stick with it during the blossoming stages where it's like, I'm not so sure anything's happening. It still seems kind of winter-like to me. As we move through the process, even of the seasons of the spring, as we move from Tu B'Shvat to Purim, ultimately to Pesach. The redemption is happening. We're all a part of it, and we should stake our claim and find our own inspiration and our own spiritual energy from that, and to take those fruits and say, I see the fruits. I see the fruits even before it happens. You know, it's, I think about people who are teachers, especially teachers of young children, or even parents of young children, anyone who works with little kids. Like, how do you see like these little people that you're working with are turning into adults? I'll end with this. This past Shabbos, we were invited to some friends who have recently made Aliyah, like the past couple years, and their twin daughters, they have 3 of their 4 daughters live in Israel. 2 of their daughters are twins, and they both got married while they were here. And I hadn't seen them. I hadn't seen and in a long time. And I'm sitting at the Shabbos table looking at these girls who I remember, because when they were born, I remember going over to their parents' house and seeing them sitting in their little matching infant seats, you know, next to the fireplace. And I'm like, and now you're sitting here with your head wrap on, and your husbands, and you're doing this, that, and the other, and you're in nursing school, and you're this and that. I'm like, I must be getting old, because and I couldn't help but saying, like, I remember when you were a baby and you were sitting, like, you know, in an infant seat. So it's just like, so when you live long enough and you have the perspective, you can see it even before it happens. Like, I know that I am growing the future, the leaders of tomorrow. I know I am planting the fruit for tomorrow. Remember when we when we were growing up on Tu B'Shvat, they used to give us the really hard carob boxer from Israel. By the time it got shipped to the States, you'd have to make an appointment with your dentist, because if you bit into it, it would break your teeth. It was like so hard. And it was like, oh, the carob tree, it takes a really, really long time to produce fruit. So why would anybody plant it? Because you'd never see the results of it. It's like, I'm planting it for the future. But you have to be able to see there is the future, and I can see it now, even though I may not even live long enough to reap the rewards. I'm going to participate in the unfolding, the process of redemption now as I live. Ladies, have a wonderful Shabbos. Anyone who wants to stay on after, please. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellyn. Whoops. Thank you.
Thank you
It's
so
really
much.
interesting.
Fantastic.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom. So I need to know the gematria is fascinating to me. So
Yes, I'm happy to. Let me just say to Marla Diner, while you're still on, Marla, if you wouldn't mind just emailing me, I didn't catch and I don't have paper right by me. If you could send me the information for the person who's interested in our class, I would appreciate it. Then I'll add her to the list. Okay, thank you. All right, Gabi, you're interested in the gematria. So I'm going to say, don't take this so literally. Don't take it so literally. Okay, so meaning that when you're measuring space, you say length times width. Length times width is like 5 feet by 5 feet equals 25 square feet, right?
Yeah.
That defines space.
Length
Okay.
times width. Okay.
Okay, that defines space. What we're going to say is, since we're using, instead of when you go to a Shiva house, you don't say, may Yud He Vav He comfort you. We say Hamakom. We use the word that means the place.
The place.
Hamakom, the place. And what is that? Why place? What does that mean? The place. So what we're saying is, we're going to take the Yud He Vav He name and turn it into an equation for space.
Okay.
So we're going to take each of the letters, the Yud, the He, the Vav, and the He, and we're going to manipulate them. So we're going to say Yud equals 10, but it's not just a flat point 10. We're going to say 10 times 10.
100.
100. plus the next letter of Hashem's name, which is Hey, equals 5. 5 times 5.
25, then 12, then 25. So 150, 160.
So now we have 100 plus 25 plus 36 plus 25. Because Vav times Vav is 6 times 6. So that's
Right.
30,
I did fine too. You're right.
36. And then the final Hey is again 25.
Whoa, 186, same thing. Oh my God.
Same as Makom.
Thank you. Fantastic. It's really special.
And that's what we're saying is that Hashem is we're calling it dimensionality, but obviously Hashem is beyond dimension. But in our human minds, what we're saying is there is no other space or place other than Hashem. There's nothing that exists outside of Hashem. And that is part of the comfort to a person who has lost someone, is the person, their neshama, however we want to understand it, is not someplace other than with Hashem, and is the same place where I am too. I am in Hashem, as is this person who is no longer in the physical world as I know it.
Maybe another room. That's all.
Right, it's another room. It's a room with a door that is, some say permeable, not permeable, whatever. We don't really understand so much about that. But that's different than saying that they're no longer here, or they're no longer, when someone says, well, they're no longer with us. It's like, what does that mean? Yes, they are. They're in a different room, but they're not outside of the space or place that is Hashem.
Beautiful, especially today.
Yeah, that is very beautiful.
Yeah, we were in shock. I don't know if you remember Ruth Lampert and Mark Lampert.
Oh, I know. They lost both their parents, and
Oh, how do you know already? Oh my.
well, we get the announcements. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
Oh, so the announcement came out already?
Yeah.
What school do they go? No, HEA. So I haven't looked at the emails. Yeah, I know from Zoom Minion, and yeah, he looked because he didn't sleep all night. The night before was, yeah, he couldn't be without her. 71 years together, he explained, and they were one. Like Kabbalah says, he became one. So they never separated for more than a day. So yeah, thank you for this. It's very, I think it helps. It helps to console. So Toda Rabba and Yasher Koach was fantastic. So I remember Shirat Hayam in Rodef Shalom, you told us?
Yes, that was mine.
You used to sing. So I was invited to Rodef Shalom this week on Shabbat because it's Refugee Shabbat. So friends that are very involved invited me if I want to come. So I'll think of you because I know that you know how to sing it, right? With all the
I do. It's beautiful. And it has some different melodies in there. It's not the same as the regular Torah truck.
And you remember.
Yeah, I know it I learned it as a song, so I know it. In fact, when I do it for davening, I sing it to myself with the melody.
Oh, can you record it?
Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael.
I would love to have your song like recorded, and if you send it to us, I'll put it on every morning, Shacharit. That would make it. It's
very pretty. It's very pretty. Andy, yes.
May I ask you, can I pay for the classes on Venmo as Steve's account? Both of your accounts still active?
No, so thank you very much. But no, the payments are being handled by the Jewish Experience, because the Jewish Experience is paying me to teach for the Jewish Experience. So this is all under the Jewish Experience. So when I announced at the beginning about the web page for me, so if you go to theje.com/Ellyn, if you scroll all the way down, there'll be a payment option, and it'll be, you can do a class, you can be a sponsor, you can do you can designate if you want it in memory or in honor of, and that'll be just a regular credit card payment.
Thanks. Okay.
So thank you. Thank you.
And is another choice Send the check to the Jewish Experience?
for
or it
sure.
has-
No, for sure. You can send a check. Just make it clear what it is and what it's for, so they know how to.
that it's for you, for the class, whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
The old one,
Thank you.
for
Yeah.
dinosaur.
So
Okay.
just so you know, I just want to be transparent. The money you give does not come directly to me. The Jewish Experience is paying me a salary to teach,
Oh.
but the funding for it comes from people who contribute. So it's indirectly, yes, but it's not that I get whatever. So it's not like if somebody gave $20,000, I don't get $20,000. It's going to the Jewish Experience, and then they pay me. They're paying me for my doing this class and for my videos. So it's that they're paying me an annual amount.
But you're still an employee, what's great.
Yes.
Got
So
it.
I'm a
It's wonderful.
contractor.
You
yeah.
know,
That's amazing.
Ellen,
Yes.
Ellen, when I was at Mi-Yerushalyim, there's a lovely rabbi there called Rabbi Levi, and he was explaining how we are in the process of redemption. And he said, Hashem said, first I would take the exile out the Jews, and then I will take you out of exile. So all the Baal Teshuvah movement was really the first sign that we all saw of that. I think it probably started before, but one thing that we recognized, and it was just really interesting because it's similar to the Hatzeti V'Tzalti V'Ga'alti V'Lakachti. So first I have to redeem you from your ways that aren't Jewish, and then I
Right.
will take you. I will bring, so the idea is that we're on the land of Israel and people are learning more Torah than ever before anywhere in the world in one place.
It's really
And
amazing.
it is. It's astonishing when you think about it. It was the first time I ever really thought about it when he said that to me. And I'm thinking, wow. And he also said what you said last week about how the streets of Jerusalem will be filled again with the sound of children playing and old people walking. And what's astonishing is that all of this is coming true.
It's
And
right in
it's-
front of our eyes, and people are like,
Yeah.
what? I don't see it. I'm like, open your eyes. So, and I think part of it is a challenge because this land of Israel was given to us conditionally. It is not to escape from the Holocaust. It is not so that we can have our own government. It is so that we can live the Torah and keep halacha. And that's the deal. And so I think sometimes people don't want to really see it because it is a call to service. And I don't mean army service. I mean, it is a call to serve Hashem in this land. We're meant to be a light unto the nations, to show the world what does it look like when people live in accordance with the Torah in every aspect of their life. And that's what the land of Israel is meant to be. And when we get that through our heads and it manifests itself, then we will be ready to go. But it doesn't have to be everybody. We just have to have a tipping point. It's never required everybody. It just needs to be a tipping point. And we're getting there. We're getting
It's
there.
very exciting. I think it's very interesting that that the BBC was saying, oh, what was this? The recent election saying this is what they call it hardline because they can't cope with right wing or whatever. They're like, this is the most hardline government in Israel's history. And I'm thinking, yes, we're getting closer.
Thank God. Yeah. It's
Exciting.
but what we really need is we're told if the Jewish people would observe 2 Shabbases in a row, we would have redemption.
Two.
So it's like, that's what we're looking for, is Jewish people to stand up, measure up. That's what will make it happen. So God willing, we're on our way, and hopefully we should just be inspired to know that we have a role in this song, and that it is not that nobody is, what is it, that song that used to be, everyone's got a place in the choir, some sing low and some sing higher. That was some little kid song that our kids learned at Herzl.
I don't know, but it's a cute song.
All God's kids got a place in the choir, some sing low and some sing higher, whatever, something like that. But basically, we're saying like everybody has a role and we all count, and nobody should think that their efforts towards their service to Hashem don't matter, aren't being noticed, or don't make a difference, because it all matters. And every step in the right direction is a step that secures our place in this land more firmly, because that's the ultimate, that's the goal. So, yeah, Ezrat Hashem.
Yeah.
Rabbi Tat says that. He says, never, he says, we don't know when it's going to happen. And he said, it's when the pail or the bucket is full of tears and it just needs one more tear to tip. And he said, never, no one knows who's going to tip it.
It says Hashem is collecting all of our tears, but it'd be better to have tears of joy and happiness. Let's work on those instead.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, ladies,
thank
have a
you so
wonderful
much.
Shabbat. Thank you so much.
You too. Lovely
Take
to
care.
see you. You look
After
very
you
well.
Bye-bye.
Bye, ladies.
Tודה רבה.